Okay, we're going to look at some problems from test 8 that some of you had trouble with, just to make sure you get those straightened out before our test next week. All right, so number 4 says in 2015 there were 40 polar bears in Sector B. Thanks to conservation efforts, this year there are 60 polar bears in Sector B. What was the percent increase? All right. So to find the percent increase, the first thing you need to do is figure out what is the increase. What does that mean? Well, there were 40 polar bears to start with, and now there are 60. So the increase is, what is the increase from 40 to 60? That's 20 polar bears. That's the increase, how much it increased. Another way to show that is to just say 60 minus 40 is 20. That's the increase. All right, and so when it says what percent increase is this, it means what percent of the polar bears you started with is an increase of 20 polar bears. All right, so 20 is what percent of 40? That's what you're looking for. All right, so an increase of 20 polar bears is what percent of the polar bears you started with. All right, so here you're just going to divide both sides by 40 to get x by itself. And that is 20 over 40 for x. X equals 20 over 40, which is 1/2, which is 50%. So that would be a 50% increase. Okay, multiplying scientific notation. Here you've got 4 times 10 to the negative 4th times 7 times 10 to the 9th. Just make sure that you multiply the constants, or the two numbers that are not powers of 10. You multiply those together. So 4 times 7 is 28. And then for the powers of 10, all you have to do is add the exponents. So negative 4 plus 9 is 5. So that's 28 times 10 to the 5th. And really, if you're going to write that in very proper scientific notation, you would write it with only one digit to the left of the decimal point. So 28 can be written as 2.8 times 10 to the first power. And then you've got that 10 to the 5th power there. So your final answer would really be in proper scientific notation if it were written like this. Add the exponents on the 10s. 1 plus 5 is 6. So 2.8 times 10 to the 6th. Right? You also have here that you want to find the, you've got a right solid that's 9 millimeters tall. It says find the volume. All right? So to find the volume of a right solid, you find the area of the base and multiply that by the height. All right? So here's the base. It's got a rectangle that's 4 by 6. So 4 times 6 is 24 square millimeters. And then you have this triangle. The base of the triangle is going to be 3 because all the way across that shape is 7, and we have 4 up here. So that leaves 3 there. And then this side of the triangle is 6. So the area of that triangle is 3 times 6 over 2. Which is 18 over 2, which is 9 square millimeters. All right, so the area of that whole base is 24 plus 9. So that's the area of the base. And you are going to multiply that by the height, which is 9. So that's how you find volume. Area of the base times the height. All right, so that's 33 times 9, and I'm running out of room here. 33 times 9, and that's going to be 297 cubic millimeters because it's volume. Volume is cubic units. Okay, on number 13, you're supposed to find the surface area of this rectangular solid, and you could do this by adding up all the faces. All right, this face right here is 8 by 11, and there are two of them. There's one there on the sides facing us and another one on the back. So that would be times 2. And then we have, let's see if I can get a different color. Okay, then we have the ends, so this side, and then the other one, which is back there, and that is 7 by 8. So 7 times 8, and there are two of them. So that's 88 plus 88 there, which is 176. And then you've got 2 times 56, so 56 plus 56, which is 112. And then you also have the top and the bottom. The top is 7 by 11. So 2 times 7 by 11. So 2 times 77, which is 154. So if you add all these up, 8, 9, 14, carry the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 442 square yards. All right, and then we wanted to graph this on a number line. We wanted to graph x is less than 1, and x is less than 1 means all the numbers less than 1. So we don't want to include 1, so we put an open circle on there, and then we want to talk about all the numbers that are less than that. So that is this way. All right, I'm seeing a lot of careless errors on some of these problems that involve fractions and just, addition and subtraction. There's just a lot of careless errors going on. All right, so on number 15, remember that if you're going to multiply, you need to change mixed numbers to improper fractions. Okay, so first of all, you want to just go ahead and rewrite this. Change the 1 1/3 to 4/3, and change the 4 1/2 to 9/2. All right, so now you're going to cross multiply. You're going to multiply these two things, so x times 9/2, and that should equal the product of these two things, 1/4 times 4/3. And if you look, you can see that the 4's cancel because you're multiplying two fractions, so you can cancel any factors in the numerator and the denominator. So that gives you 9/2 x equals 1/3. And to get x by itself, you're going to need to multiply both sides by 2/9. You multiply by the reciprocal of the x coefficient, or you divide by the x coefficient. It means the same thing. And so when you do that, all that stuff cancels out, and you end up with x equals 2/27. All right, and then on number 16, this was a very straightforward problem. There were just a lot of careless mistakes. All right, so when you want to solve for this, you want to get the x term all by itself. And so the first thing you do is either add or subtract something on both sides. All right, on the side with the x, we are adding 9. So to get rid of that, we're going to subtract 9 because subtraction is the inverse operation of addition. So that will, 9 minus 9 is 0. So now the 23x, sorry about that. The 23x is all by itself on the left side. So 23x equals 101 minus 9 is 92. All right, so now you have 23 times x equals 92. If you want to undo multiplication, you divide. So you're dividing both sides by the coefficient of x. That will make that cancel out. So x equals 92 divided by 23, and that is going to be 4. Okay, you got to be really careful on 19 and 20 because of all these negatives and positive signs. All right, but remember the basic operations that are happening here are addition and subtraction. All right, so look at the first term here. You've got negative, positive 9. All right, remember you look at how many negative signs you have. You have one negative sign, which is an odd number, and so therefore that is going to be negative. Negative 9, and then plus, and then the next thing you have is negative 10. Two negative signs, that's an even number of negatives, which makes it positive. So positive 10. And then you're subtracting here negative positive 6. That's one negative sign. Therefore, that's an odd number, so it's a minus 6. It's a negative 6. All right, so you're almost done, but you've got these two minus signs here in front of that 6. Minus a negative is the same as plus a positive. When you subtract a negative, it's the same as adding a positive. So negative 9 plus 10 is 1, and 1 plus 6 is 7. All right, again, same kind of problem on number 20. Look at your first term. Okay, first of all, you're adding here and you're subtracting here. First term is negative, positive. You have one negative sign, that's odd, so it's a negative 4. Then you're adding. Then you have a negative, positive 2. You have one negative sign, so it's a negative number, so negative 2. Then you've got a subtraction sign, and you have negative, positive 5. That means you have one negative sign, that's odd, so that means it's a negative 5. And again, subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. Now we can just work from left to right, doing our addition. Negative 4 plus negative 2 is negative 6. So negative 6 plus 5, and that is going to be negative 1. All right, number 21, you got to be really careful and follow your order of operations. The first thing you do is parentheses. That means anything in parentheses or brackets or under a radical sign or just absolute value, anything like that where things are grouped inside of some kind of barrier. All right, so we'll go over here and do this parentheses first. 4 plus 1 minus 5 is 0. All right, so if we write this again, we've got 9 minus the cube root of 25 plus 9 times 3 to the 4th minus 0 divided by 5. All right, so we did our parentheses. Next comes powers, exponents, and roots. So we have to do those next. So we've got this 9 minus the cube root of 125 is 5. Because 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. So the cube root of 125 is 5. And then we've got 9 times 3 to the 4th power is 81. Minus 0 divided by 5. All right, we've done our powers, we've done our exponents. Now we need to do our multiplication and division. All right, so this is subtraction, this is addition, but 9 times 81 is multiplication, so we need to do that. 9 times 81 is going to be 729. And then we've got minus, and now we have division over here. We need to do that division. 0 divided by 5 is 0. 0 divided by anything other than 0 is 0. All right, so we've done all our multiplication and division. Now we can go ahead and do our addition and subtraction from left to right. 9 minus 5 is negative 4, and then you're going to add 729 to that, and that's going to be 725. And then down here at the bottom, we have to evaluate this expression. We're going to substitute everywhere we see a V, we're going to put a 4. Everywhere we see a W, we're going to put 16. And everywhere we see an X, we're going to put 2. So V to the X is 4 to the 2nd power. And then the Vth root of W is the 4th root of 16. So 4 squared is 16 minus the 4th root of 16 is 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. So 16 minus 2 is 14.